Come on in to Margaret McSweeney's Kitchen for Kitchen Chat, where every week you'll meet chefs, cookbook authors, foodies, gourmets, and just plain people who love to eat. And along with laughter, chat, recipes, and stories about food, you'll sometimes also hear words of inspiration, love, and hope. As Margaret always says, Kitchen Chat is food for the senses and food for the soul. So grab a cup of coffee, put your feet up on a comfy chair, and get ready to spend a little time with Margaret and her friends.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. This is Margaret McSweeney, your host here on webtalkradio.net, and I am just so delighted you have joined me in my kitchen today. And we have two very special guests I'm just thrilled to introduce you to. Our first guest will be Chef Eddie Montalvo. He is the chef de cuisine at Blue Smoke Flatiron in New York City. This is an award-winning restaurant, which is part of the wonderful, wonderful Danny Meyer Union Square hospitality group. So I can't wait to learn all about barbecue and how to get that secret sauce to really tantalize the taste buds. So we're going to be talking to the expert. So without further ado, Chef Eddie, thank you so much for being on Kitchen Chat.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, this is great. So barbecue is your passion, and I love the tagline for Blue Smoke restaurant there in New York City in the Flatiron Building. Is that right, there in the Flatiron Building?
It's not in the Flatiron Building. It's in the Flatiron District on 27th Street.
Great. Oh, okay, great. So it's in the Flatiron District. And I love the tagline on the website, which says, Urban Barbecue, where live music lives. This is great. So with Blue Smoke, so the whole focus, the whole menu revolves around barbecue.
Correct.
Great. And is there a special, because I know, oh my goodness, there's so many different kinds of barbecue. Even, in the South where I grew up, in Alabama, you've got the Texas kind, you've got the Alabama, the South Carolina, the Tennessee. So what type of barbecue technique do you focus on there at Blue Smoke?
Well, here at Blue Smoke, we focus on the four primary regions, which are St. Louis, Kansas City, Memphis, and Texas. And actually, we just recently added the Carolinas. We started representing the Carolinas as of last month with our pulled pork.
Oh, great. And it's so interesting how barbecue preparation really seems to differ from each state.
It's interesting. A lot of that has to do with what was available in each of these regions. For example, in St. Louis, they had a lot of pork. In Texas, there's a lot of beef. The Carolinas, a lot of pork as well. So, these were the meats of choice because they were what was most abundant.
Right.
And then the wood of the region is what they would use.
And so even with the sauce, for example, if memory serves me correctly, is it more of a mustard-based sauce in the Carolinas?
The Carolina is a vinegar-based sauce.
Vinegar, okay.
Correct.
Okay. So there's just a real different taste, no matter if it's kind of the same meat, either pork or beef that they're using. A lot of times they really give it a significant and distinct flavor with the sauce.
Correct.
Right. So how did you become the guru of all things barbecue? What got you interested in that?
I wouldn't say that I'm a guru. I think I'm more of a Jedi in training. I've only recently started working here, and in the short period of time that I've been here, Chef Kenny Callahan has really taught me a lot about barbecue. Prior to being here, I was mostly at classical French and contemporary French restaurants for actually a decade. And in my last job, we started messing around with some barbecue. And, we convinced the chef to buy us a small smoker, one that we can kind of, sneak into our very tight accommodations. And, it worked out. And really what we considered a toy at the time ended up, doing wonders for, our new barbecue program at my last job. And then, that gave birth to the interest that I currently have in barbecue.
That is so fascinating, and I understand that you actually started a barbecue program at Danielle Boulud's DBGB restaurant there in New York City. And
correct.
Yes, and that's a real switch, as you were saying, from the classically French-trained menus I'm sure you were preparing to start off with the barbecue.
Well, at DBGB, that was more of like a gastro bar. So we had some everyday bar food, but in a very French setting. And that was kind of blended with a lot of American things like a good old hamburger. That hamburger, one of our hamburgers happened to have pulled pork on it, which when we first started, we were buying from someone in the city. And then we realized, this would be kind of fun to make it ourselves, and why not try and figure it out? So that out of that came the little smoker, and then from there, this great interest in barbecue. Just from that pulled pork that we wanted to do for our hamburger, that gave birth to so many other smoked items that the restaurant ended up doing over the years.
Oh, and it all began with that smoker.
Yeah.
So what?
Funny. It's funny if you ask, any, self-respecting pitmaster, what their opinion is on these little box smokers. That they'd probably have a chuckle. But we cranked some pretty decent barbecue out of that little box.
That is great. A little box came up with some big items, so that's great.
Yeah.
And what have you discovered along your journey in terms of barbecue? What the secrets to creating the best and most flavorful pit barbecue? Is there a secret, or are there some helpful hints that our Kitchen Chat listeners can try on their own at home?
Yeah, for sure. The secret to great barbecue is a combination of spices and flavors, mixed with your smoke of choice. So if you're a home barbecuer and you're just trying to get your barbecue dialed in to impress your friends and family, then really it's nothing more than obtaining a good product, going to, if you have a good relationship with a local butcher, seeing what they have to offer, and then getting your own spice mixture together. You can start off by just, Googling, a standard spice mixture for a particular region, and then toy around with it. If you want to add different elements to it that make it unique to yourself, if you're Hispanic and you want to add cumin, by all means add cumin. And then the smoke, the type of smoke. If you're doing a butt, you want to get something strong in there, like a hickory. You can use oak, some mesquite. That's stuff you can all buy at your regular hardware store, really.
Right.
And then the real important part is cooking it slow and low.
Okay.
Making sure that you have plenty of beer, because it's going to take you a very long time. good book, maybe a bottle of wine, and a lot of patience, and what you'll be doing is tending, a fire, essentially, like a campfire. Just very slow and gentle, just let this thing go. And that really is the key. Having the right product, having the right spice mixed with the right smoke, and, a fair amount of patience.
Okay. Now, how do you bring those important elements and secrets to great barbecue to a restaurant where people are just always in a hurry? There's such a demand. How does that work, the slow and low, to meet the consumer's pace?
Well, all that works if you eliminate the beer, wine, and the sitting down to read a book.
Okay. Yeah.
But what we are trained to do as chefs is put as much love into something in an otherwise chaotic environment. Mm. So we really have to be, beyond just being a very creative person, we have to be very good at organizing ourselves and setting up these systems where you can stagger your products throughout the day so that not everything is coming out at once. You're staggering it throughout the day so that what is being served for lunch is what is coming out of the smoker that morning, just a few hours prior to lunch. So that requires setting up, the night before, organizing yourself, making sure that everybody's doing the job properly, and then, making sure that along the way you're just double-checking the product to make sure that it's where it needs to be.
Right. And so you feature on the menu every day the ribs, the pulled pork, the brisket, etc., or do you focus on only one kind of specialty per day?
No, we have the full selection every day.
Wow.
So all the ribs, the brisket, the smoked pork butt, smoked chicken wings.
Mm. Oh, that does sound yummy. And I'm just trying to get a sense of what it's like to be in your kitchen, too. If you could kind of give a visual description to myself and the listeners. Are you surrounded by open pit barbecue pits, or are they kind of contained? Does it get really hot? Do you do anything outside, or everything is done inside? How does that work?
Well, what we're really surrounded with all day long is a lot of heat and happiness.
Happiness and humidity, right?
and humidity these last few days, yes. And the heat is a given. The happiness is a must. We work very hard. We are surrounded. We do a lot. A barbecue place in an urban setting is quite a challenge, as you can imagine. And we do a lot. We put a lot of effort into what we do. And then, in order to maintain our stress levels, we make it our priority to respect one another, yelling, stuff like that. I mean, it's an interesting environment in that it's not your typical kitchen, which is great.
Which is great, because most of the barbecuing, as I recall in the South, a lot of it, we'd go outdoors, and the barbecuing would be, outside and everything. But this is a lot of heat. I mean, do you have ventilation? I mean, do you have air conditioning on in the wintertime? I mean, how does
Yeah, no, there's always adequate ventilation. The beauty of our barbecue pits is that they're so high tech.
Right.
At any given moment when you open the barbecue pit door, you can engage an evac system that draws all the heat and the smoke out so that you can check your product or add product or, remove product without inundating the kitchen and the dining room with all that smoke.
Wow. So it must, I guess you're creating your own barbecue cologne each time you leave
Oh
the
yeah,
restaurant.
yeah, for
That's
sure.
right, something to market there. Now, not being an expert by any means on the barbecue techniques, how did the name Blue Smoke arise? Is that specifically in terms of a barbecue technique, or what? How does that come into play? How did your restaurant get the name?
Uh, from my understanding, the restaurant's name was, they came up with it. They knew that they wanted to do this restaurant, and I forget the individual that actually put up the name, but I know that it was a conversation between Danny Meyer and Kenny Callahan and Mark Maynard Parisi and a number of other individuals, and someone shouted out this name and it stuck.
Well, that's great. And do you have, with that little tagline, "Urban Barbecue Where Live Music Lives," do you have a lot of the blues played there, or what kind of music is featured there?
We actually have, there's a lot of jazz on a nightly basis. We do get the occasional blues band come through, but it's mostly jazz. And that's downstairs. Blue Smoke is actually two different restaurants serving the same menu. It's Blue Smoke Jazz Standard, and the Jazz Standard is where you can catch, any number of amazing jazz bands, any day of the week, really.
Oh, that's just such a perfect combination, barbecue and jazz. That really, I think, encourages the diner to pull out a book, a glass of wine, and wait for the barbecue. That's a great combination.
Two very original American concepts.
Yes.
Under one roof.
Yes.
It's pretty amazing, and I regularly go down there to have dinner and catch a show. And one is to enjoy the music, but two, to also make sure that, what we're doing in the kitchen is actually, hitting the table tasty and all things good.
And what is your favorite dish that you enjoy eating?
My favorite dish currently, since I've started, is the beef ribs.
Beef ribs?
I think it's so simple, it's the salt and the pepper, it's the smoke, the smokiness from the apple wood, and just that tenderness. I mean, it's amazing. It's an amazing product.
Wow. So apple wood is what you like to pair with the ribs, then?
Yeah, generally all our ribs are done in apple wood.
Okay. So how do you prepare the sauce? Is the sauce an important element, or is it more important to have the smoke, the smoke flavor?
I think everything has everything contributes equally to any particular dish being amazing. The sauces are definitely an important part of it, but it's not everything. Because you can have an amazing sauce and, execute the smoking poorly, and then you have nothing more than a soft, dry rib.
Right. And is there a secret of really having just those ribs that melt in your mouth? I mean, what can, listeners take away and say, oh, that's a great technique. I'm going to have to try that next time.
Well, I think the temperature is key. You should also have a good product.
Yes.
If you have the opportunity to get, say, a Nyman Ranch pork butt, that's going to be an amazing product because someone took very good care on their end of raising that animal and bringing it to your door, in a very good state, fresh.
Right.
And then once you have that product in hand, then it's really all about the temperature. Hispanics will roast the pork shoulder, with some garlic, salt and pepper.
Mm-hmm.
Very simple. But the key to it is the temperature. 200 degrees, very slow until you get that nice tender product that, hasn't, because of high heat, has not dried out. That same principle applies to barbecue.
And do you marinate it before, or you just prepare it with the smoke and the spice?
Well, you would rub, if the recipe called for it, you would rub with a spice, or for example, with the butts, you just cook them as is, and then you're adding the seasoning after and the sauce after.
Oh, okay. Okay, so it depends on which preparation you're making and which meat or recipe. And with the sauces, what is the most flavorful sauce that you've really sampled in terms of these regions?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that again?
Yes, in terms of the sauces, and this, I know there are different rubs and all of that, but, with the St. Louis and Kansas City versus Memphis and the Carolinas, if you could maybe share a little bit about the different styles and taste of those preparations. Mm-hmm.
For example, with Kansas City, their thing is mainly ribs. The sauces tend to be tomato-based. It's a thick sauce. It's a sweet sauce. That's the kind of sauce that you kind of want at a backyard barbecue. Where you just if you can just envision sauce all over the face, all over your hands. A nice little beer.
Yeah.
And then there's the Carolinas where you take the pulled pork and you're putting vinegar-based sauce on there, to kind of cut all that richness. And those, that kind of sauce on top of a pulled pork sandwich, that to me is amazing. Again, with a beer.
Right, right.
Or bourbon. Bourbon actually would go well.
Or a different marinade for that, right?
Yeah.
And what about Memphis? What would be the distinguishing flavor for Memphis?
Again, the tomato-based sauce.
Okay.
Sticky, sweet, a little different than the Kansas City, but similar.
Okay. And with the Texas, does that have its own taste?
Texas is funny. I heard someone saying that a true Texan wouldn't be caught dead with a sauce in his hand. And that's you see that in our ribs, the beef ribs. It's just simple salt, pepper. Same with the brisket.
Okay.
Salt and pepper.
Okay, but it seems like the underlying, what would you say? I guess the technique or the taste or the underlying thing that everything has in common is that everything is cooked slow and low with a specific smoke and spice.
Yeah.
Okay, and so with that in mind, what would you have as some suggestions for great summer dishes that a home cook, one of our listeners, could take away and make?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things that I like to do from time to time at my house is a whole pork butt. And you can, I think it would probably be a special order. If you live in Manhattan,
mm-hmm.
You can go down to Essex Street Market, or you can go over to Faicos, the old school Italian butcher on Bleecker, and just ask for a whole shoulder. You bring them home, and a little salt and pepper right on the grill. If you have a gas grill, the way around the smoking process is they sell them. It's called a smoker box. You get a little smoker box, or even a coffee can with some holes in it, with a couple of wood chips in that, and then you turn your grill as low as possible, trying to achieve a constant temperature of around 200. If your grill doesn't go that low, you can go upwards of 225, but 200 is preferable. And then you just, again, slow and low, till it reaches an internal temperature of 180 degrees, and it feels nice and tender to the touch. And then you can dress that with what I really like to do around Christmas time for my family, a sour orange mojo, which is nothing more than some garlic, Scotch bonnet peppers, cumin seeds, olive oil, orange juice, Spanish sherry vinegar, and some ground black pepper, blended. And then you just pour that right over. And if you want to adjust the salt, if you like it a little bit saltier, by all means. If you don't want any salt, then just keep it out.
That sounds doable. So you don't have to have an open pit barbecue pit to prepare these items. You can just on your own grill outside, or even in the oven. Could you still do this?
Well, if you do it in the oven, then you can't put the smoke in unless you want to smoke your house out.
Oh, that's true.
And if you do want to smoke your house out, then I suggest removing your fire, your smoke detectors.
That's a good point. And you don't have to have one of those rotisserie types of things. I mean, are there special things that really do better on a rotisserie, or no? Is that just kind of changed, or how does that work?
No, I think that if you're paying attention to the technique, you don't need anything fancy.
Okay.
I have at home your most basic grill. And it has a basin on the bottom where I can just put some wood. And if I turn it as low as it can possibly go, I can do some pretty good barbecue.
Great. Yeah, wow. And what do you like to serve as a side dish for your barbecue creations?
I love mac and cheese.
Mac and cheese?
Yeah, it's funny. I'm a health nut. I like to take good care of myself, but from time to time, I will not only cook a whole pork butt. I will add some very amazing sides like mac and cheese. My wife will put together some buttermilk biscuits. The last one she did was I think it was sweet potato biscuits with honey butter, and we did some country style spare ribs.
Oh, yeah.
In the smoker, and that was amazing.
Oh,
so I would say a combination of those three things.
That sounds great. And do you serve the same in the restaurant? Do you have the side dishes to go along with it? And can diners order that mac and cheese there too?
Yeah, actually, we have an amazing mac and cheese that I cannot stop eating. Which is not a good thing. It's not a good thing for my waistline. But it's brilliant. I've never really tasted anything like this. And the way the sauce is made, and the way the whole thing is put together, it's just brilliant.
And is there a special cheese that is used, or what do you think that secret ingredient is?
Well, we use a blend of American and cheddar, The rest, the remaining ingredients are a secret.
Oh, okay. I think it must be the ambience of the heat and the happiness in the kitchen here at Blue Smoke. That's the secret ingredient. Oh, well, this is great. And I understand that the website, listeners definitely check this out, www.bluesmoke.com, and you can follow the restaurant on Twitter at Blue Smoke NYC. And do you post some recipes or anything like that the readers might enjoy? Any special features on the website?
Updates, what's going on. We just recently had the 10th annual barbecue block party. That sort of information is posted.
Great. And
upcoming events, jazz acts, things like that.
That's right. You had your 10th annual. That's amazing. Outside barbecue block party. Tell us a quick highlight on that. That must have been amazing.
A quick highlight?
Yeah.
200,000 plus people descended on Madison Square Park for a two-day party. It was amazing. Saturday and Sunday, first week in June, it was an experience, and it was my first block party as a chef. I've come as a guest plenty of times, but it's interesting. It was interesting to see it from that end.
Oh, how fun! How fun!
Yeah.
Kind of sounds like the taste of Chicago, but here's a focus on barbecue. How fun is that? Well, I'll definitely try to make that next June. So it's every June then, the barbecue party?
It's every year in June at Madison Square Park. We would love to have you. Blue Smoke has a VIP tent where we serve a couple little extra things to sample. This year we did smoked lamb ribs with yogurt and lamb bacon. Next year, who knows what we'll come up with. But we'd love to have you. Come spend the afternoon with us. Oh,
thank you, and I would love to be there. What a fun time, and I definitely would love to visit the kitchen.
For sure.
Yes, this just sounds great, and yes, all the best. You've just recently joined Blue Smoke there in March, I guess, so just there months, and I'm sure the creations will continue there, and you do sound indeed like a guru of barbecue, and I so appreciate your taking the time to share some secrets of the techniques and information with us today here on Kitchen Chat. So thank you so much, Chef Eddie, and listeners, definitely check out Blue Smoke. They're in New York City at Flatiron, and thank you so much for joining me on Kitchen Chat today. I am so excited, listeners, to introduce you to our second guest today from Blue Smoke, Flatiron. They're in New York City. Once again, it's part of the wonderful, wonderful Danny Meyer group, Union Square Hospitality Group. And, in the prior interview, Eddie Montalvo, Chef Eddie, was talking about how he likes to pair barbecue and beer. Well, we will hear from the beer guru, one of the beer gurus of all of Manhattan, in terms of beer and what else it goes with, along with some wonderful beverage opportunities. So please welcome Tanika Green, who is the Assistant General Manager, Beverage Director at Blue Smoke Battery Park City. Tanika, welcome to Kitchen Chat.
Margaret, hello. Thank you.
Oh, good. It's so good to have you here. It was so much fun. Chef Eddie was talking about, the perfect pairing, beer and barbecue. So, especially when you're out in the heat trying to cook that barbecue. But I have learned something completely new about beer, and I'm just so curious to hear more about this. You are one of only 10, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing this, Cicerone, is that how you pronounce it? Which is officially a beer sommelier And you have an actual certification as a Cicerone. And listeners, if you're curious, that is spelled CICERONE, and officially known as a beer sommelier. What exactly is a beer sommelier?
Well, for so many years, people sort of called themselves a beer sommelier or said, I'm an expert on beer, but there was no way to quantify that. And a gentleman from the Chicago area, actually, Ray Davies, decided that he would create a program based on the Court of Master Sommeliers program to really be able to judge someone's knowledge on beer. And so the program itself is still in the early stages. It's about 4 years old. And there are 3 levels of examination. The first level is an introductory beer cellar, and so that sort of just lets you understand how to take care of beer because it's pretty fragile. And then it grows from there, being Cicerone being the middle level. And then there's a master level, which there's only about 4 people right now who are at master level certification.
4 people in the United States.
In the world, yes.
In the world. Wow. And you mentioned something that just intrigues me, that beer is fragile. What makes beer fragile? I thought
it is
in the fridge.
Yeah, it's very susceptible to light and air, and can very quickly go bad, which people don't really realize because you think, wine is really a fine product and it's much more expensive on the market, and beer is sort of less expensive and seen as a good time beverage. But it is very delicate and has to be handled in really particular ways. So it's sort of the goal is to get everyone serving beer to understand how to take care of beer so that the guest gets the freshest product.
This is so interesting. And like grapes, I guess, do you need to be completely conversant on the types of, is it barley or what? And I'm so sorry, I don't really know much about beer. What actually goes into beer?
Sure, there are 4 main components. Water being the number 1 because it makes up about 90% of the actual ending beverage. Yeast, which is what you're going to use to actually make the alcohol. And then barley or some sort of cereal grain.
Okay.
So it can be barley, wheat, rye. And then hops, of course, which is sort of like the seasoning for beer.
And what exactly are hops?
Hops are a flower, the only other relative of the cannabis plant, actually.
Of the which plant? I'm sorry.
Cannabis.
And what is
hemp?
it? Oh, hemp. Oh, okay. Interesting. And so the hop, what is that used for? You say seasoning or? It's
used to develop bitterness in beer as well as different flavor compounds too. You'll have citrus notes depending on the hop that you use. You'll have more herbal notes depending on the hops that you use. Really, the hops really sort of influence the flavor overall of the beer.
Interesting. So it's kind of like the spice for, preparing something in the kitchen.
Absolutely, that's exactly right.
Wow. And I guess the barley or the cereal grain would be comparable to the grapes. And is there, a certain way that barley or the cereal grains are harvested? I mean, does that go into the quality in terms of, whether something, organic or I don't know. I was just very curious about that too.
Well, with beer in particular, the basic starting formula is about the same regardless. So you choose the grain based on how it grows, and then you sort of trick it into sprouting. And then you stop that process, and what you're doing there is you're making it, the sugar's available so that you can convert it into beer, essentially, because you need sugar in order for the yeast to eat that. So it's not as barley is to grapes as much as it is barley provides a base.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes. And I'm just, I was just so interested in hearing that rye can be an ingredient. I think of, the rye and pastrami there in New York, the Reuben sandwiches. I think that's served on rye. But so that could be one of the ingredients.
Absolutely.
And how does that affect the taste?
That's going to give you more of a spicy note, much like the same way that it is in bread. So it gives you a richer flavor. You'll still have barley used with the rye, but it definitely intensifies the flavor of the beer.
And what about the color? Because I think, or is that pumpernickel? Maybe I'm thinking of pumpernickel too. Is pumpernickel in there at all?
Well, no, that's a really good point, actually. Once you've harvested the grain, whichever grain you use, and then you toast it, depending on the degree to which you toast it, that's where you're going to get the color from for your beer.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so are most of the beers we're talking about like on draft, or you also focus on the bottled ones?
Both. We have, at our new restaurant, we have 10 beers on draft and then an additional 45 to 50 in the bottle.
And do you see the sources of those mainly being U.S.? I don't know, do you call them beer manufacturers or U.S. or imported or kind of a mix?
For us in particular, since our food is such comfort food and great American history, our beers tend to focus on American craft brewers.
Okay. Wow. And so I'm curious because Chef Montalvo is making all of our taste buds go crazy with this discussion of like pulled pork and some of the wonderful barbecue items on the menu there at Blue Smoke. So how do you pair the different barbecue items with beer? Is there kind of a science or do you give kind of a little beer tasting to see which ones the customers prefer, or how does that work?
Yeah, exactly. We sort of take a couple different approaches. There are some basic tried and true methods of pairing beer with food in terms of intensity. So if a beer is very intensely hoppy, you'd want a food item that sort of can match that intensity. If something like pork is very sweet on its own without any sauce, and so I like to pair that with a richer, maltier beer. So those two things can play on each other and really enhance the flavor.
That's interesting. So when you're talking about hops, and as we just learned, that's kind of like the spice. So if it's real hoppy or real spicy, you would still pair that with a food that's really spicy.
You can, absolutely. The other thing, Food Depot, has a fair amount of fat and rich to it. So it's something that's really hoppy can kind of cut through that.
Oh, okay. This is just fascinating. So you have all of these varieties there on hand. And what do you think, I guess, your most requested type of beer to go with a barbecue? What does that seem to be?
Of course, our Blue Smoke Original Ale, or because it's crisp and light and refreshing.
Wait, the Blue Smoke Original Ale, and what was the other one?
A Pilsner-style beer.
Oh, okay. Great. And so a Blue Smoke Original, so do you actually brew beer there on premise? Do you have like a...
Not quite yet. Actually, Brooklyn Brewery has brewed this beer for us for the last 10 years.
Neat. And so did you help develop the taste of the beer then?
This was something that our managing partner, Mark Maynard-Parisi, and Danny Meyer worked on with Brooklyn Brewery to develop a beer specifically that would go with our menu.
Wow. Oh, this is just fascinating to hear. And how would you describe the taste of the original ale for Blue Smoke?
It's an amber ale. It's slightly sweet and mildly hoppy, so it's really easy to drink.
I love the descriptions, mildly hoppy, to put that in the vocabulary. And when you say amber ale, that I assume refers to the color?
Yes.
Okay, so the amber would be the meat, or how, or I guess if you could take us through the color scale of beer, that would be interesting. Is there like a color scale of beer, like amber, dark ale? I mean, how does that work?
Sure. Mm-hmm. It goes as pale as, I'd say, straw, and there's all the way to jet black, like a Guinness, which is you can't see through it. Okay. And so an amber ale is sort of right smack dab in the middle.
Okay. Oh, that's great. And is that on draft, or does it come in bottles? Okay. Great. Oh, and is this available at grocery stores yet? Are you planning on bottling it, or any plans?
This is something you have to come to us to have.
Okay, so it's really exclusive. You have to venture to Blue Smoke restaurants there in New York to have a sample firsthand. Well, I'm just so curious. You mentioned, thank goodness, there are only four Cicerones, beer sommeliers worldwide, and you are one of 10 Cicerones in New York City, or the master Cicerone. There are only 4 worldwide, and in New York, you're one of the Cicerones in New York City, and there are only 10. I mean, this is quite an accomplishment. What did it take to become one, and why did you decide to become one?
Sure. I had just recently taken over the beverage program at Blue Smoke, and we decided that we really wanted to amplify our training program and get our staff really on board and excited about the products that they were selling. And so we developed a training class along with another beer instructor, and I started to get really interested because I'd never had any real exposure to beer in that way. Most of my training up until then had been with wine, and so this was a completely new thing for me to think of beer on these terms. And slowly, over the process of going through that training, I decided to continue and move forward because beer is it's like the oldest beverage, aside from water, And so just learning about it was connected to learning about the history of civilization.
Beer really goes back that far. When was the first beer consumed, and by whom?
The prevailing idea right now is that it was created by the Sumerians in the Middle East, what is now Iraq, somewhere about 10,000 years ago.
Wow. Oh, that is so interesting to hear, and I wonder how they discovered that.
Yeah.
Well, great. And so you were inspired to just really bring, a great product knowledge to the diners there at that Blue Smoke. That's just wonderful to hear. Now you hear a lot about microbreweries, and what are some ideas? I guess, you can go to Napa Valley and go have a little wine tasting at the different vineyards. What if someone were to come there? Do you offer classes in terms of, or do you offer beer sampling, or how does it work at your restaurant?
Absolutely. We love for people to come in and try different things. We try to keep a good rotating selection on our draft lines, so that people can always come back and taste different things. One of the choices available overall for us is a beer flight. So you can come in and you can choose 5 different beers, so you can sort of pick and choose and see what you really like.
Oh, yeah. So it's really like visiting the Napa Valley for beer at Blue Smoke. That is great. Now, do you see any trends within the microbreweries? And I don't know if it's coming up with different hops in terms of fruity flavored, or definitely calories are always a concern in terms of the lightness. Do you see any new trends emerging within microbreweries or ales that are offered?
Well, I think right now what's happening is for American microbreweries especially, there is such a drive for big, intense flavor. And some microbreweries now are sort of backing up and mellowing out so that their beers are a bit more approachable for, the average person, which I think is really exciting because I think that will also help to bring beer to more people who necessarily might be turned off by how intense it can be.
Interesting. And do you still see the light being an option in terms of, I don't know, is there a Blue Smoke Original Ale Light offered as well?
You bring up a really good point as well. Our Blue Smoke Ale is definitely our top seller on draft, but as far as bottled beers, people love the classic American lineup. So Bud Light really goes well, and a Beta Light out of Louisiana, which makes a really nice, full-flavored light beer. So I think that people want to still be conscious of their waistline and still be able to enjoy a flavorful beer. And so I think that will always remain a possibility and the case for us, for sure.
Great, and especially pairing that beer with barbecue. Another quick question. You not only deal with the beer, but your other beverages, of course, and I understand you've come up with some creative, handcrafted cocktails, such as the Clooney Cobbler. I would love to hear about that, and is that named after Sir George Clooney himself?
It is. We at Blue Smoke, the original, we have a jazz club. And sometimes some of the inspiration for the cocktails will come from that. And so with the Clooney Cobbler in particular, I was in the jazz club and tried to come up with a nice spring cocktail. And for some reason, Rosemary Clooney crossed my mind.
Yeah.
George's aunt. And just, with her being a singer and sort of sweet and energetic and spicy, which is all qualities that this cocktail has. And so there's blackberries and jalapeno tequila, lemon juice. So it ends up being a really refreshing, approachable cocktail.
Oh, that's fun. So I guess from a cocktail perspective, using a beer terminology, you could say Rosemary Clooney definitely was quite hoppy.
You could say.
Oh, that's great, and great music as well that she created. And then I guess there's also a trend like with virgin cocktails and cocktails with a low alcohol content. What are some ways that, there are definitely some non-drinkers and the listenership, what are some ideas where they can enjoy some lovely no alcohol or low alcohol content on some creations?
Sure. I think one of the easiest ways to do it at home especially is by making your own simple syrup. And you can use different ingredients. You can use agave syrup as your base, which has a lot lower glycemic index, so it'll be healthier for you.
Yes.
And then you can flavor it with different things that you like. In summer, I love thyme, using that as a base for the syrup. Kind of so refreshing, and having that with a little club soda on the rocks.
Interesting. That's a great, I'm going to have to try that. So thyme and club soda. Interesting. And you mentioned syrup. How do you make a syrup? So it's like agave and then you just put whatever, like the fruits and everything in that as well?
So what you'd want to do is take a basic syrup would be 1 part sugar to 1 part water.
Okay.
And you can just heat that up for very briefly so that the sugar dissolves, and then you can flavor it with whatever sort of herb that you have.
Great. Oh, that does sound fun and doable at home. And what are some unexpected updates on classic cocktails?
This year, with the opening of our new restaurant, we tried to do something new. And Manhattan, I think, is one of the perfect classic cocktails.
And what's in a Manhattan?
It is bourbon or rye, sweet vermouth, and bitters, essentially.
Wow.
And so what we wanted to do was have something that was signature to Blue Smoke. And so we decided to smoke the bourbon.
Wow.
And so that it's like a nice hint of smoke found balanced out with all these other flavors, which is really like a signature thing. So it's a bit of an opposite.
Oh, so do you think mint juleps will be smoked too?
Absolutely.
Oh, well, this just sounds like such a fun place, Tanika, to go. I encourage the listeners, check out bluesmoke.com, a wonderful restaurant in Danny Meyer's Union Square Hospitality Group. And Tanika, are you, available there at the restaurant if folks want to come chat a bit?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, terrific. We'll definitely connect with Tanika Green, who is the Assistant GM and Beverage Director at Blue Smoke in Battery Park City there in Manhattan. You can check out Blue Smoke at www.bluesmoke.com. And I guess I encourage you all to be hoppy. I love that. I have a new fun term, to be hoppy in life. To add that extra spice to your day. And this is great. Thank you so much, Tanika, for sharing all this great information with us today.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful speaking with you.
Oh, same here. And listeners, please stay in touch. And I encourage everyone just to sit down and savor the day.
Thank you for joining us today. If you're interested in Margaret's books, A Mother's Heart Knows, Pearl Girls, Encountering Grit, Experiencing Grace, and Go Back and Be Happy, please just click on the covers on the webtalkradio.net page in front of you. Margaret would love to connect with you and hear from you, so join her on Twitter, Facebook, her blog, or click on this website to leave a note and share a recipe. Thank you again, and we'll see you here again for a new show next week.